Alright, in the last video we found the greatest common factor between 32 and 36. Now this time let's look at variables. We have y squared, y to the fourth, and y to the seventh. Now I want to write out what each one of these truly is so you can really see what's going on with the greatest common factor. So y squared would be the same thing as saying y times y. Y to the fourth would be the same thing as saying y times y times y times y. Y to the seventh would be y times y times y times y times y times y times y. 7 of them. Now let's look at what they have in common. Can we see that they both have a common set of y's here? They have a 1 in each. They also have another set of y's in common, but that's it. The next two terms have more y's in common, but in order for it to truly be the GCF, it has to be common to all of the terms. So in this case, our GCF here would actually be y squared because they have two of them in common. Okay, now just as a quick recap, when we did just numbers, we were looking for the largest thing that would go into both of them. In this case, it was a 4, because both of these are divisible by 4, and that's the biggest thing that they're divisible by. When we dealt with letters or variables, we were looking for the smallest exponent, because that's how many they all have in common. We're going to need this for the next two examples. In this example, we have 12y to the fourth and 20y to the fifth. Now, these have both numbers and letters, so we're going to have to take this in pieces. Let's first look at the numbers. Between 12 and 20, we want to find the largest thing that will go into both of them. Or another way of looking at it is, what is the biggest thing that 12 and 20 are both divisible by? So let's see, since these are both even numbers, I know that, worst comes to worst, they're both divisible by 2. But is there something larger? You have to always ask yourself that. And in this case, there is, because 4 will go into 12, and 4 also goes into 20. So our largest number that goes into both of those would be a 4. Now we look at our y's. We do have a y in both of those terms, so that is common. But to find out how many, we look at the exponents. The smallest exponent is a 4. So therefore, our greatest common factor here is 4y to the fourth. Now in the next example, we have a lot more going on. We have 20a to the 6th, b squared, c to the 8th in our first term. And in our second term, we have 50a to the 7th, b. So we have numbers, a's, b's, c's, all kinds of things going on here. Let's deal with the numbers first. Between 20 and 50, we want to know what is the biggest thing that will go into both of these numbers. Well, in this case, it would be a 10. The largest thing that you can divide into both of those would be a 10. So for numbers, it would be 10. Now let's look at our letters. We have a to the 6th and a to the 7th, so they both have an a in common. The smallest of those exponents would be a 6, so our GCF would have a to the 6th in it. Now let's look at b's. We have b squared and b, so they both have a b in common. The smallest exponent here is technically a 1, even though it's not written, so that would be a 1. Now lastly, we have c's. We have c to the 8th in the first term, but no c's in the last term, so they do not have any c's in common. That tells us that our GCF then is 10a to the 6th b.